Armagh get out of jail at the Athletic Grounds. They have beaten Westmeath by a point. A nail-biting game for either set of supporters who were watching this game. It was a nail-biter for neutrals and certainly for Armagh supporters. They can count their lucky blessings after that victory. Westmeath so unlucky from pulling off the massive shock. I mean, people laughed when David Brady said a couple of weeks ago that Westmeath could beat Armagh Tyrone, and goodness me, he was very close to pulling off probably one of the predictions of the year, because Westmeath, very unlucky, in my opinion, not to come out with the 2 points, not to come out with the victory. If it wasn't for that late goal from Conor Turbot, which I think, like, in many ways, it was a fluke in some ways, because Rian O'Neill, he's obviously going for the point. The ball drops short, and then Conor Turbert's in the right place at the right time to put the ball in the back of the net. And you could arguably say it should have been defended better from a Westmeath perspective. But what a performance from Westmeath. What character shown from them. They led for the majority of the game. They were the better side, in my opinion. I think for Armagh, like, look, it's a very disappointing performance. We know that they can play better. I'm sure they obviously had their heads and their minds set on probably playing Tyrone in a couple of weeks' time. And I think maybe they underestimated what Westmeath brought to the table. But it was probably very easy to do that when you look at it. Westmeath, didn't even get out of Division 3 this year. And Armagh, beaten on penalties by Derry in the Ulster final. So I think from an Armagh perspective, look, they will play better against Tyrone. But to be honest with you, it's not looking good from an Armagh perspective, in my opinion. I think they have a lot of work to do. I just don't see them as serious All-Ireland contenders, to be honest with you. There's a lot of flatness in Armagh's performance. Decision-making isn't quite there. Even towards the end of the game, Ethan Rafferty constantly going long on kickouts when he really should be going short. They seem to struggle to see games out. And it's definitely a worrying perspective for Kieran McGeeney and certainly for Armagh from an Armagh perspective. But this is the Match Reaction. This is the show where we're going to break the game down, discuss it in more detail. Like and subscribe. Armagh get the victory, 113 to 112. Let's go. GA Fan TV, this is the instant match reaction. Armagh 113, Westmeath 112, as we were saying there in the intro. Very, very close game. A lot closer than what we would have expected. I mean, I was always planning to watch this game, and I was always thinking I'll probably do a video on it anyway, but I felt like it was nearly a done deal before the game started. I felt like I knew what I was going to say. I felt like I knew how this game was going to go. But I think if we've learned anything from this year's championship in both football and hurling, nothing is a sure thing. It just isn't, and I think maybe we all need to start learning our lessons that bit more. But at the same time, you just looked at it like Westmeath struggling in Division 3, beaten by Louth earlier in the season, after throwing away a huge lead. You just felt like surely there's no way that Westmeath could cause a shock or cause the win. And even in the first half, when Westmeath got the goal through Ronan O'Toole and they went 4 points up, you still always felt once it clicks for Armagh, they'll be too hot to handle and with the home advantage. But that wasn't even the case. Like, I don't even think Armagh, like, through a huge amount of brilliance, came back and won the game. Like, I feel like it was just a long ball from Rian O'Neill. He was going for the point. It dropped in short. It wasn't defended. And Conor Turbot was there to put the ball on the back of the net. And that completely flipped the game on the 67th minute. And I genuinely do believe if they didn't get that goal, if that sequence of play did not happen, I don't think Armagh would have won this game. I think they would have got beaten. Because Westmeath were even playing with a bit of confidence. They had that belief. And even in the final few minutes, you've seen Westmeath miss a couple of chances. Heslin put one wide. O'Toole put one wide. Like, all of a sudden, the belief just went from Westmeath when that goal went in. And I think if that goal doesn't go in, I think Westmeath win the game, in my opinion. But yeah, it's unfortunate from a Westmeath perspective. Like, they fought so hard. They played so well. I mean, Ronan O'Toole was outstanding. A goal and a point from him. Luke Loughlin was excellent. Sam McCartan, very strong. John Heslin, another big performance from him. And to give Armagh credit, like they were poor at times. Like their passing wasn't quite there. Just wrong decision making. Westmeath were getting a lot of turnovers, and Westmeath were matching them physically, which is something you don't always say. Like Armagh usually a very physically strong side, but in fairness to Westmeath, they were getting heavy hits in, they were getting heavy challenges in, and they were turning the ball over. But Westmeath did show some resilience to keep themselves in it, to keep plugging away, and going down the home stretch. A couple of big points. I mean, Andrew Murnan, outstanding performance from him. Rian O'Neill was quiet enough, I felt, but he still scored 4 points. Stephen Campbell with 2. Rory Grugan with 3. Kieran Mackin with a late point as well. Like they held their nerve going in, in those final couple of moments. And I think that was key in the end. But I don't think it was a huge amount of brilliance that saw Armagh win the game. I think it was just that goal. It was just that goal. And in fairness to Westmeath, serious amount of credit needs to go to them. And you'd sort of wonder, this is not the first time I've seen Westmeath play a top team and play very well. Beat Cavan in the Tailteann Cup final last year. A couple of years ago, they were very unlucky not to beat Mayo and Meath. I remember in the, I think it was the league group stages they had then. They have great players. Ronan O'Toole, very, very skillful, tricky player. John Heslin, has the ability to do anything on the pitch in terms of an attacking sense. One of the most brilliant sort of shooters in the game, you would say. Luke Loughlin, very good. We've seen how well he's done with the Downs this year. Sam McCartan, Ray Cannell around midfield. They're very strong, good fielders of the ball. Their half-back line is quite strong. You just wonder, how did they not get out of Division 3? Do you know what I mean? You'd wonder, I'd say if you're a Westmeath fan, there's a part of you that has really enjoyed, not really enjoyed because you lost, but enjoyed the performance and the way Westmeath played, and you'd be proud of how Westmeath played. But I'm sure there'd also be a part of you that'll be very frustrated because you'd look at it and think, where have those performances been all season long? If Westmeath had played like this in more games, more often than not, they could have got to a Leinster final and they could have possibly got out of Division 3. And that's something definitely that I think Westmeath need to focus more on, in my opinion. But yeah, look, from an Armagh perspective, the performances, they have to get better, because if they don't get better against Tyrone or Galway, look, they'll probably get out as a third place team. You think that's probably 1 foot out of this group. From an Armagh perspective, it would need a big sequence of results for Armagh not to finish in the top 3 at this stage. And whether Westmeath can galvanise themselves enough to get a result against either Tyrone or Galway, probably not, in all honest with you. I think Tyrone and Galway were probably watching that game thinking, okay, Westmeath are definitely going to be much tougher opponents than what we thought they would be. But yeah, from an Armagh perspective, they have to play better against Tyrone. They probably will, because they're big rivals, and playing in Omagh, they'll raise the standards and they'll play much better then. But just from an Armagh perspective, game management wise, decision making just doesn't seem there, and there does seem to be a lot of inconsistency in their performances at the best of times. And I think that is a worry from an Armagh perspective, if you are an Armagh fan. But there we go. Plenty of comments. DJ says, come on, Armagh. Yeah, Armagh fans are going to need as much support as they need. That's a shocker. Crushing defeat for Westmeath. Hope they could do something against Tyrone, says Gavin. Yeah, I mean, it'd be a tough one for Westmeath to take. And Westmeath have they have a lot of results in defeats like this. I remember against Mayo and Meath a couple of years ago, as I said, in the league. They played very well in those 2 games and then lost it down in the relegation playoff. They, against Louth in the first half, excellent, and then they throw the game away. It seems to be a common theme for Westmeath, where they can play really well against really good sides, and then when they play sort of lesser quality of opposition, they'll throw the game away. Against Down as well, they looked very good in the league this year, and then Down came back and beat them. But there we go. Jamie B. Max says Westmeath can take something from the game for sure. Armagh got lucky. Westmeath were a better team on the day. They'll give Tyrone a good run. Great to see it from the Leinster side. Yeah, positives to take from a Westmeath perspective, but I think it's about building on these performances into next year, because a performance like this from Westmeath, it wasn't as big of a surprise when you think of how good they looked last year, but they haven't looked right at all this year. And that's the worry. Like from a Westmeath perspective, more than capable of challenging some of the top sides on their day. But yeah, like Armagh were very poor in fairness, but I think Westmeath made them look poor by, look doing very well on turnovers, defensively very well set up. And Westmeath like managed the game very well. Like they kept the ball for large parts. They frustrated Armagh. They took the sting out of the game. And I think you can only give Westmeath credit for that. And look, one thing we know now, in my opinion, is they won't be a walkover for Galway or Tyrone. I think they'll be competitive enough against either one of those two sides. But whether they're good enough to beat them, I don't think that they will be, in my opinion. So definitely a big blow from a Armagh or from a Westmeath perspective there. But there we go. Yeah, 1 point win in the end, very close. And I'll be curious to know your opinions and comments for those who aren't watching live. I think Armagh, there's just a lot of flatness about them. If this was a once-off, you'd say fair enough. But they have a lot of flat performances at the best of times. And look, if they go out and beat Tyrone, all will be forgotten. They'll be in the top two of the group then, because there'll be no way Tyrone will be able to catch them. So look, there's still, it's still not all lost for Armagh, but it's definitely a worrying performance. And whether you would back them to do anything serious this year beyond the quarterfinal stage, you wouldn't really imagine so based off some of these performances. But yeah, I think man of the match, Ronan O'Toole was probably the deserved winner on GA Go there. Andrew Merlin had a very good game for Armagh, felt as well. But you probably would edge it towards Ronan O'Toole. He was very, very impressive from an Armagh perspective, as was John Heslin as well. But yeah, let me know your opinions, your thoughts in the comments down below. My name is Aaron. Big result for Westmeath in the end to get the victory. They'll be happy. Westmeath or Armagh fans will be happy leaving the athletic grounds, because it didn't look like they were going to win the game at one point. But definitely a lot to be worked on from an Armagh perspective. So cheers anyone who tuned in, and we'll speak again soon.